Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to learn about the tenses, which is a significant part when we talk about the SAT, because SAT is about reading comprehensions and the grammar. And when we talk about the grammar, the tenses actually takes the 50% of the grammar part. If you know the tenses, you are almost 50 to 70% correct in your sentences. So let's learn what these tenses tells us. So we call it verb tense. Why verb tense? Because in a sentence, when we are making an English basic sentence, which is subject, verb, and object. In this case, the verb tells you about the time period when it has happened, when this action has happened. Verbs are those actions that tells us. For example, I'm saying right now, I am teaching tenses. So that is a present continuous tense that right now what I'm teaching. And if I taught tenses, that means that was a past thing. So what these words are, when I say teaching, this is the present. When I say taught, this is the past. So this is called action word, and these action words are verb tenses. Tenses tells you a time period when it has happened. So in total, we do have present, past, and future tense, which tells you about the different time periods of these three. And, and in all these three, we do have a bifurcation of 4 parts. The first one is present indefinite tense. We use the present indefinite tense when we are talking about the universal truth, which is a fact that does not change ever. Like trees are green. So trees are green forever. This hasn't changed. This won't change in the future as well. So this is a universal fact. Second one is repeat, means that anything that you repeat, maybe in a week, 6 months, or every year. Hobbies and habits goes the same, that a thing that is a repeated action at a particular time or at a certain time, or maybe you do it every day. Like I go to office every day. So this is something that I do every day. So routines, habits, and universal truth. Basically, if I conclude all these three, is what meaning that they do not change and which happens in a frequent certain times or intervals. And how do we make a sentence? Like I said, subject, verb, and agreement. So when we were talking about the verbs, those are the action words. So these verbs has 4 forms basically. The first one is the zero form. Zero form means which does not conjugate according to the tenses, which is the real form of the verb. For example, we have taken an example of the verb go, which means jana and going. So go has a zero form as to go. And the first form of the verb is go, then went, and then gone. These are the first, second, and third form. And according to every tense, this verb changes, which tells us that which tense is this. So in the first tense, present indefinite, we do use the first form of the verb, which is I go. I is the first person singular. First person means who is speaking or who is doing the action. And if it is plural, we use we. Second person who is taking the action or to whom we are speaking to. That is in singular and plural, you. And third person, if we are talking about somebody or something else, in this case, we use he, she for male and female, and it is used for the animals and things. They is used for all the plural third person if we are talking about a lot of things together for something and somebody. So in this case, there's a one exception rule. And that exception rule says that third person singular, when we are talking about somebody and something else, tend to use S or ES with the verb. And this S and ES with the verb goes according to the verb forms. For example, we had goes over here, we'll use ES. And if it's a verb like work or play, we just add an S to it. He plays, she works. Okay, I hope all you have understood the present indefinite tense, because this is the most useful and most regular verbs among all. Okay. Now, the second one, which is the easiest one to understand, it is about the present continuous. Continuous means that any activity that happens at a continuous duration of time. So this tense uses the helping verbs is, am, are, and this tense also uses the first form plus ing. So I am going, we are going, you are, they are. Just I uses the am, and the third person singular uses the is with the verb. Okay. Present perfect tense. Present perfect tense is a bit confusing for a lot of people, as this tense tells you about the action that has already happened. And if I say it's already happened, that makes it the past. But why we are saying it to present then? So the action which has already happened has to have its relevance in the present. For example, if I have eaten my food, so I have eaten my food and I am not hungry. That food is still with me. This is has some influence to my present also. In that case, I use the present perfect tense. Or if I say I have read this book, I have read this book. That means I read this book somewhere like maybe 6 months back, or maybe a year back, or maybe just 1 week or 2 days back. But I still remember the story of it, even if it was a year gap. So I'll always use I have read this book because the action was in past. However, but we still remember, or we still have the influence of it in our present. So we use has and have as the helping verbs for the present perfect tense, and perfect tense always uses the third form of the verb, and hence we would use the gone over here. Has is always the third person singular, always have a condition. So present indefinite tense we have learned it would use SES. Continuous tense it uses is, and the present perfect tense it will use the has. Present perfect continuous tense, as you can just read it, that it is the tense which is mixing the two different tenses together. One is perfect, the other one is continuous. So perfect means that action has already happened, and continuous means that action is still happening. So when is the situation that is happening? I have been teaching for 2 hours. So right, I started this 2 hours back and I'm still doing it. So in this case, we use the present perfect continuous tense, and the helping verb for this is have been or has been, and the main verb would be from the continuous, which is first form plus ing. I hope all you have understood the present tense. These all were from the present tense, which are the most useful tenses, as we all live in a present and we tend to speak and converse much more into the present tense. Now, the second one is past indefinite, which you can relate when you are thinking about any stories or anecdotes that you are sharing with your friends, or you are reading a book. In that case, we often use the past indefinite tense because it tells about a point of time that has happened at some time back in the history. I went to this market. It has no relation to my present. It's just one action that happened in the past and ended in the past. I read this book. I read this book means I read this book. I do not know anything about it. I do not remember the author name. I do not remember the characters or the story of it. It was just one action that has happened in the past and ended at that time. So, and this is the only tense which uses the second form of the verb and which does not have any exceptional rule to the third person singular as well. All the 6 subjects over here would be using the second form of the verb. Then we have past continuous tense. Past continuous tense talks about any continuous activity in the past, which talks about duration in the past, which is talking about I was going to the market when you called me. So generally when we are making these kind of sentences, we uses when also, we related with the another sentence also. And the helping verbs for this is was and were, and the main verb would be in the first form plus ing. The next one is any action took place once or many times before another point in the past. That is your past perfect tense. So past perfect tense means that when you're talking about continuous actions, when you're talking about simultaneous action, like just one happened and then the another action happened at that time. When you called me, I had left my place. That means you want to say that when your second action happened, the first action had already happened before it. So in this case, we use the past perfect tense. So past perfect tense talks about had, which is the helping verb, and it uses the third form of the verb, and it talks about the action that has happened before another time or before another action. Time means I had eaten my food before 2 p.m. So that means this before the 2 p.m. happened, there was something else or there was some action that has happened, and that action would be written into the past perfect tense. Then we have past perfect continuous, and just like we have learned the present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous also talks about any continuous action, but in the past. When you are saying, I had been going to the gym for 6 months, and now I do not go. So this means that any action that was happening in the past for 6 months and at present, it does not happen. Okay. Come in 10 minutes. Future indefinite tense. Future indefinite tense talks about any action in the future. Okay. When we are talking about just predicting about or just planning about the future, this is the easiest tense as we all use it for very general thing when you're talking about the future. I will go to the market tomorrow. So when you're talking about any future activity or plan, you uses the future indefinite tense and it uses will as the helping verb and go or the main verb into the first form. Future continuous tense, all the continuous tense talks about the duration. Like for 2 hours, for 4 days, for 5 months, for any amount of duration. If you're talking about in the present, you use present, then past, and then in the future. I will be going to the Amsterdam in the next 3 months. So in the next 3 months, I will be traveling to the Amsterdam. So when you're talking about any duration of time, like 3 months, 2 weeks, or any time period, you uses the continuous tense, be it in the present, past, or future. Future perfect tense. Future perfect tense talks about any action that would happen in the future and that has a certain time period. I will have gone to Goa by December 24. That means that you have a certain, like when you are certain about the future. That is why this is very rare tense to be used because we can never be certain about the future, right? So, but if you have a fixed date, for example, you students have a fixed date of your exams. I will have given my exams by May 24. So that means you are saying that May 24, you would be done with your exams. So anytime when you have a fixed time period of the future, you can use the future perfect tense. Then by this time, this work would have been done only. So we uses will, have as the helping verbs. And as I said, present, past, or future. Perfect tense always uses the third form of the verb. Then we have future perfect continuous, the rarest tense that we can use because it is very rare that any action being started in the past, still doing in the present, and will be doing in the future. I think this action only related to the profession. So, like I can say, I will have been teaching for 15 years in 2025. That means I started back in 14 years back and I'm still in that period present and I will still continue to do it for another year. So I am saying for the 15 years I have been doing this thing. So for this type of actions, we uses the future perfect continuous tense, which has the helping verbs of will, have, been, and the main verb would be in the first form, ing, which is the part of the continuous tense. So let's just revise everything before we practice this portion. Indefinite tense talks about point of time. Present indefinite tense, any routine that you're doing at a point of time, every day at 7 a.m. I go to school, or past, any action happened in the past or future. Continuous when you're talking about the duration of the time. Perfect when you're talking about the period of time. But I started at that. I have read this book in December. So when you're talking about a period of time, long time. So these are the point, duration, and period of time. So let's try and solve these SCT questions. Now in the SCT, we will not have a lot of time to understand the whole question. And sometimes this is just a 3-line statement. Sometimes they give you a 4 or 5 or short paragraph to solve for the tenses as well. So what you have to focus upon when you are solving these questions of the tenses, that you have to directly jump to the tense over here. So tense we see, Samuel Adams was by no means the first American. So we have got to know was. This is the past and it is not underlined. So that means this sentence is all written into the past tense only. He has been the first to conceive. So now I told you that the first verb is being conjugated. So they have conjugated the word to be as been, which is the third form. So they are using the perfect tense. But how can they say to conceive? The zero form is always to conceive. It cannot be conjugated to ed. So this is the mistake they have done into this. So that is why we can easily eliminate A, B, and C option because they are saying to conceive, and having conceived, which is also wrong. The first one, to having conceived, we haven't learned any tense like that. Now we are left with option D and E. Again, E is saying having been the first to conceive. So this is the passive form. And we do have a subject over here. We need an active form of the sentence. So hence we are left with only one option. He was the first to conceive the party machine. And hence this would be a right answer. And in the exam, what you have to do is just go to the any verb in the sentence, understand the form of the sentence, and then look if they have done any silly mistakes like to conceive, eliminate all these things, and left over option elimination process ke baad, that would be your right answer. Okay. So you all would be receiving these kind of the whole PPT, the whole PDF form of the tenses. Just revise them, follow the rules, and it would be very easy to solve the questions. In the SAT, the grammar question should not be taking more than 30 to 40 seconds. Thank you, everyone. Bye.